he's a managing editor for the Grayzone. Please welcome back to the show, WYATT Reed. Hey, Wyatt.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Oh, shit, look at that beard.
I know, it's getting out of control.
Damn, it's like freaking Peter Griffin. The bird's going to fly out of it.
Yeah, man. Good to see you guys. How you been?
Pretty good.
Great, man.
Yeah. Well,
Nice.
look, I mean, we have, man, the war machine, I feel like, has only intensified since the three of us were last together. We had a good conversation, I think, since it was, we were in Chicago doing all the in the streets. We were in the streets with the people fighting against the genocide. No mention of what was going on in the streets there, because the DNC was embracing it, not letting anybody from Palestine be represented, not even to get up on the stage and say one little thing before they gave their support to Kamala. So we saw that, and fast forward months and months later, here we are. We got this new regime in place that's doing exactly the same thing as the previous one, which is funding genocide. And it seems that we're getting so close to annihilation of the entire Palestinian people, like we've been screaming about the whole way, but they're right out admitting it.
Could you argue though, Matt, they're not even doing the same, that they're doing more?
They're doing more. They're fast tracking. That's what it seems like, and they're more willing to say it out loud. We saw Trump parading around with that AI video about the Trump Gaza and what we're going to do once it's cleared out. So saying it's ethnic cleansing out loud, but we weren't allowed to say it was ethnic cleansing. We aren't allowed to say it was a genocide, but they are. I'm just going to throw this one up. This is the Israeli TV producer admitting that they're not only doing a genocide, but they're bragging about that it's almost done. I mean, this is absolutely insane. And we're going to get your thoughts on this. I'm sure we all agree that this is totally nuts, but I just don't understand how they can get away with this without us saying, see, they're saying it out loud. They're literally saying it out loud. Here it is.
Hamas.
Yeah, right. Oh, wait. Yeah. Just return the hostages and this will all go away. Right. So Israeli TV producer calls for Gaza Holocaust and gas chambers. This is disgusting. This famous television producer in Israel has come under intense scrutiny following the uncovering of a series of inflammatory social media posts in which he called for the Holocaust against the people of Gaza. Elad Bashari, who has worked in the Israeli entertainment industry for several years, sparked outrage after posting on X, "Good morning, let there be a Shola Holocaust in Gaza." And another post, he wrote, "I can't understand the people here in the state of Israel who don't want to fill Gaza with gas showers or train cars," and finish the story. Let there be a Holocaust in Gaza. Who is the fool who says there are innocents in Gaza? Who is the despicable scoundrel who wants to let them flee to Arab countries or Europe freely? So this is the kind of language they're allowed to use. But when we use this language, we're called, drumroll, anti-Semitic. So we can't have this discussion at all. And now it's becoming more and more on the element of illegal, the free speech being cracked down here. Again, saying the same stuff they're saying out loud. Why do you feel that this has intensified since we were all in Chicago protesting this at the DNC? Has it fast tracked, or is it the same old, same old?
You mean just the sociopathy of the average Israeli?
Yeah, and the positioning and the being as vocal about it. Is it the same amount of like just transparency about what they're really doing, or has it been the same way the whole time? In other words, is this new administration allowing more people like this to be vocal about it out loud? Because he's literally saying, let's put up a Trump Gaza. Let's, basically saying it's ethnic cleansing.
Sure. I mean, I think pretty much it's been incentivized the entire way. No one, as far as I'm aware, has been punished at all for any of the horrific things that they publish or post on social media, any of the things that, videos where they're bragging or dedicating to their girlfriend the explosion and the detonation of a family home or a school and saying, "This is for you, my love." The videos where they're going through, Palestinian women's lingerie and dancing around it. And, no one has faced any accountability at all. So whether or not, the president of the United States is going to get on stage and cheer for you or just pretend to, I mean, it certainly wasn't Biden wasn't out and out condemning any of that. So I'm not sure that it's like more acceptable. I think it was always considered, not just acceptable, but widely encouraged within the Israeli army. The aggressive refusal to court-martial anybody for anything basically sent that signal from day one. But just in terms of the Auschwitz imagery specifically, the gas chambers, it kind of draws to mind a story that we put out about a year ago about a mother of an Israeli hostage who was actually killed when the Israeli army gassed the tunnels that he was being held in. And so she herself said that the Israeli military gassed my son like Auschwitz, using her exact words. And she even put an epitaph to that effect on the grave of her son, which was subsequently destroyed by the Israeli military. The Israeli military came and destroyed her son's grave because she had condemned them for gassing her son like Auschwitz on it. So obviously, those are certain words that you're allowed to say in certain contexts, but not in others, not in the context where you're saying what the IDF did, only in the context when you're making something up or fantasizing about genociding Palestinians.
Yeah.
I think there's some colleagues of mine and ours at the Grayzone that are on WBAI that would still consider praising or saying that there's certain members of the Democratic Party, i.e. the squad, that have the least spoken up for Israel. And I think they're providing cover for them because they've used language just like Bernie Sanders used the other day. Israel has a right to protect itself. And using that type of language, to me, is completely false and fence-sitting. The Pope saying that it has all the characteristics of a genocide and not calling it a genocide for itself. But do you see more or less the Democratic Party still trying to play off this whole, well, we were the ones had at least a few people, AOC at least lied to us and said that Biden and Kamala Harris were working endlessly on a ceasefire when we found out they never asked for a ceasefire. Do you see the Democrats coming around and still trying to play this avenue that they're the better ones when it comes to being anti-Zionist and at least calling for a ceasefire and peace in Gaza? And how do you think that would affect the mainstream Americans, especially the young Americans that seem to be showing up at AOC and Bernie Sanders rallies nowadays? It's like, to me, I'm just so surprised that haven't we learned our lesson? Because when there's a Republican in office, they're a lot more vocal. And when there's a Democrat in office, they're a lot more silent.
Yeah, well, the only thing the Democrats love being more than being in office is being out of office, when they don't actually have to do anything and they can just run around and
Great point.
make these ridiculous statements, and they don't never have to back anything up, and they get to do all their little photo ops. AOC running around and screaming about concentration camps for children and fake crying for the cameras, all this kind of stuff. It's ideal for them because they're mostly theater kids at heart, and that's their chance to shine. Is like, we can get this out of our system now, and this is we don't actually have any interest in creating real solutions or to any of these pressing problems. We just want to be on TV and have people be nice to us. I mean, I don't know, the Trump phenomenon is so interesting because every time you think he's gonna take on the deep state and fight back against the Israeli lobby, he does the opposite, and then you give up completely on him, and then all of a sudden he blindsides Netanyahu, and he's having direct negotiations with Iran, and he's having a ceasefire with the Houthis, and apparently, and when he's asked about the Israelis, he says, well, I don't know anything about that. So it's we're how far into his term now? Well past the 100 days, and I still have maybe even less of an idea of how I think he's going to handle the Middle East than I did when he started, because there's not, and maybe this is some art of the deal thing. He's just trying to wring out the best possible deal at all times, and that's usually the explanation that's given. That's
the excuse. I don't know if that's the explanation. And I gotta say, at this point, those theories are hard to hold up. I mean, your boy Garrett Ike, who follows you over there, and his father David, have been calling out Donald Trump for what he is for quite some time. And I think there was a lot of us who didn't get fooled like these libertarians. That's why I've had push back against Dave Smith. Now he's going out there talking out for Israel, against Israel, when he justified and capitulated to saying, yeah, he's a Zionist, but it's okay to vote for him. But maybe he's putting Netanyahu on a leash. But at the end of the day, Israel has gotten everything they got from Biden, if not more. In fact, this presidency, Donald Trump sent them bombs, Israel bombs, the bunker busters, those 20 whatever million pound whatever they are bombs that Biden wouldn't even send them. So I think they've gotten more, and the money line is there. The Adelsons, the money line is there, and now what's going on in the West Bank, that was one of the reasons why Miriam Adelson put up that money, so Donald Trump would turn his back on the colonization and the illegal settlements in the West Bank. Sorry to cut you off, but I just think
I don't disagree at all. I think you're right about all that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think there is this kind of maverick spirit of Donald Trump just wants to be Trump and fuck everyone else kind of thing. And every so often, I think that, and I guess I'll try to make this point in terms of the Iran deal. Because what we've seen so far in terms of a proposed, like when they asked Trump, do you have a plan? No, I have shades of a plan. I have ideas
concepts of a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. So the concepts of a plan that we've seen for Iran are basically just a JCPOA 2, right? It's almost the same kind of stuff with the same sort of snapback sanctions. Iran will not be allowed to enrich beyond XYZ percent and under certain conditions. And if they do that, then we'll have these snapback sanctions that we use to, go back to economically coercing Iran. So the same exact framework that Donald Trump himself rejected. But I will posit here that I think that the Iranians paradoxically could only really accept this deal from Donald Trump, because Donald Trump would rip up anybody else's deal. The Republicans, whoever comes after Trump, would probably feel comfortable ripping up a Democratic deal. They wouldn't feel comfortable ripping up one made by Donald Trump. The Democrats probably aren't going to go about ripping up trade deal, that kind of deal, because it doesn't work for them electorally. And it's not something they can sell their base on.
Yeah.
So there's this weird angle where the man who is responsible for putting us in this situation is effectively the only one who can get us out, because no one else could be trusted to honor the deal. It's a little bit convoluted, but I feel like there's kind of a lot of weird kind of side angles at play that make it so that somehow Trump might be the only one who could actually get an Iran deal done.
It reminds me,
it's
Wyatt,
the same exact deal that he tore up before.
It reminds me, Wyatt, and I'm sorry to jump in there again, Matt. I know I'm kind of my boy is on here, so I got to talk to him. I love my boy over there. That's my roll dog. You know what I'm saying? We're biker boys. We never die. But it does remind me of the Democrats going, I wouldn't take that shot. It's Donald Trump's shot. Don't take that shot. It's Donald Trump's shot. And as soon as they got in, take the shot. They're pushing the same shot. It's just that kind of. But listen, I do want to also point out that the only argument that I would accept right now that Donald Trump is playing any sort of game of chess is saying, Israel, you can have your war with Gaza. You can have your war with the Lebanese. We'll get you Syria. We'll get him thrown out of there. You know what I'm saying? We'll make some type of deal with the Russians backdoor. Assad is gone. But you don't get a war with Iran. You get these other things, but Iran, you don't get the war, because there are people within the Trump administration, and it was led by Tulsi Gabbard. J.D. Vance then got on board. Even Hegseth said a war with Iran is not good. So there does seem to me to be, if there is any type of play, that he'll let them have the other wars. He'll let them ethnically cleanse Gaza, but you don't get a war with Iran on my shift. You get a war with Iran when a Democrat comes to office, not with a Republican like me. Same with J.D. Vance. I don't know.
The right populist flank is far more vocal about no war with Iran than the squad is. You see these great posts from Marjorie Taylor Greene where it's just like line after line after line of hard-hitting facts. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, where is Bernie Sanders on this?
Yeah.
He's mumbling something about Medicare and, some kind of mumbled defense of the right for Israel to exist or something. Like, you know, where is anybody who claims to be left saying these kinds of things that MTG is? No war with Iran. Nobody in America knows what a Houthi is, but we know what being lied into a war looks like. You know, it's just it's an obvious angle, and it's depressing that they don't take it. But I guess that kind of tells you where we're at nowadays.
Yeah,
Great points of view, man.
It's literally bizarro world where Marjorie Taylor Greene is our anti-war voice in Congress. I mean, seriously, you're right, 100% right. There is no voice on the left. We saw it coming, you know, a while now. This isn't a big shock, but it's so bizarre to watch in real time. And I do think, like, yes, so we're looking at an Iran deal happening and giving Trump credit for that. The thing, and I'm glad you brought up Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she's also been very vocal against any sort of bill being passed that's going to make it illegal to protest, to boycott, you know, anything to do with Israel or any foreign country for that matter. But primarily, it's very clear that Israel, that is the country that's being protected. That's the country all of the other politicians are doing their biddings for. And she's the only one, really, and Thomas Massie, the only one standing up saying, what kind of ridiculous bill is being put in front of our elected officials right now that are going to tell the American people they're not allowed to have a problem with a foreign country and us funding that foreign country for war. It makes no sense, but that's the part that I'm more skeptical that Trump will definitely take a back step when his administration is done. It seems to me like we're going to be a lot further back as far as free speech and as far as consistency with what American citizens are allowed to do with their First Amendment or not, regardless of a deal with Iran. That's going to be a definite backstep. And again, the Democrats aren't going to do anything to help us there either. So that's my biggest concern right now, other than obviously getting annihilated in a nuclear annihilation. But that's what I see him not coming through on at all.
Yeah, well, he's made it very clear that the free speech exceptions apply when it comes to Israel, and you know, I guess basically everyone does at this point, other than people you mentioned, Thomas Massie. I don't actually know what the latest on the boycott Israeli bill is.
I think it was nixed. I think it was killed, right?
Because of those two. Yeah. Because of Thomas Massie and Marjorie, that's why it was nixed, because of them being vocal. That's how it works. That's how politics is supposed to work, right? You're supposed to stand up for your constituents and say this is BS, and they were loud enough, and it got nixed. So good for them.
Well, that is a relief for now, I guess. Yeah. I mean, in the meantime, they are obviously passing, all these state legislatures are passing bills to adopt the IHRA, you know, definition of anti-Semitism, which says that anyone who criticizes Israel is an anti-Semite. And you know, they're passing these kind of BDS bills on a state-by-state basis so far. So I guess they kind of overshot with this one. That is reassuring to know that it's not going to be illegal to boycott Israel for at least the next congressional cycle.
Yeah. I think that we were talking earlier about the most censored news of the week, right? At the end of the day, I keep saying this to Matt before the show, and we get going like, all right, these are great topics, but we understand the most censored news now of the week, every single week, is the fact that mainstream media is not even talking about what's going on in Israel, Gaza. At one point, you know, Fox News, CNN, NBC used to have a little clock for Israeli hostages returned. They're not even talking about that nowadays. And in fact, you know, if you could put up the share my screen over here, antiwar.com, the libertarian I do like, Dave DeCamp, Israeli military lists returning hostages as the least important goal for Gaza. And you can see they have the 5 things. According to the report, retrieving the hostages was placed last in a list of 6 objectives. Those goals include defeating Hamas. We must defeat Hamas. Hamas. Operational control over the territory, demilitarizing the territory, flooding those tunnels, striking Hamas government targets, concentrating and moving the population so they can get their settlers in, and then returning the captives. So they're not even talking about the whole situation. Is like, we have to do this to return the hostages. You guys at the Grayzone, I think, have talked better about, at least more clear about some of the directives, the Hannibal directives and whatnot, that they never really cared about the hostages. They might have used them as fodder every once in a while, but it's not even on the list anymore. Wyatt. They're not even hiding it anymore. They don't give a damn. And like Matt has said before in the show, they're speaking this out loud when it comes to ethnic cleansing, settling, and genocide. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, what strikes me about this list is that the first four things are all basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's honestly like they're kind of spitting on the captives. We're basically just making up stuff, just filling, trying to hit the word count or something to stick them at the end of this very long list. Defeating Hamas is the same thing as having operational control over the territory, basically, which is the same thing, basically, as demilitarizing the territory, which is defeating Hamas and striking Hamas government targets are the same thing. So
and the Ten Commandments are like that, Wyatt. They all kind of mean the same thing, anyways. They're taking a playbook out of the Bible over here. You got to give them some credit.
Well, I can differentiate at least between killing someone and coveting his wife. But these, it's like, I don't know. You're going to defeat Hamas and you're going to strike the Hamas government targets? Wow, no kidding. Yeah. Anyway,
and demilitarizing the territory, like you said.
Yeah, right.
It's all this 1 through 4 are the same. 5 and 6 are different. But 5 is an admission of what they were doing the whole time.
Gaza, and then 6 is then we're going to worry about these, these guys that we profess to care so much about that we have to genocide an entire 2 million people.
Number 5 is important for Jared Kushner, by the way, because he needs to get in there and get some schematics on how to build these beachfront properties that he wants to get up there on the Gaza Strip. So number 5 is all about, our good friend Jared Kushner. Let's get them out of there so we can get in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the new plan from what we're hearing is that the idea is that they're bringing in some kind of Blackwater style forces to administer the aid distribution. That the Israelis aren't going to do it, but it's going to be kind of a kind of Bantustan situation with some kind of weird internationally accepted aid distribution force that's basically all American mercenaries. And then I assume they would be using all of that information to track and monitor people and try to get them to rat out other neighbors and politicize the aid, weaponize the aid. As it were. And then we're also hearing that they basically plan to just flatten, I think is the word they're using, Gaza, and maybe just ship all of the people to, I haven't even read any, if there's any specific country that's being proposed, I'm not even sure if that's public knowledge at this point in time. They are getting more and more dramatic with the kinds of things that they're saying in public now, just kind of lining up directly with what they're doing. I mean, at the beginning of this, it was they spent weeks trying to claim that Hamas destroyed the hospital or that those people themselves they had a tunnel under there, so we had no choice but to strike it. Now they just don't care. They say we're gonna bomb all of Khan Yunis, and we're not even going to really tell you when we do it anymore because everyone, has stopped paying attention on the international media. It doesn't seem to bother anyone.
I think
the only thing stopping them is the Houthis, obviously, which, I think is another kind of wrinkle in all this political calculus, because if Trump actually has worked out a ceasefire with the Houthis under which the Ansar Allah movement, that whole section of Yemen is free to continue striking Israeli ships, and Uncle Sam is just going to sit it out, then that actually does change the calculus pretty significantly, because all of a sudden Israel's on its own. It's responsible for, they need to direct a significant measure of their military towards keeping the southern flank clear. If they're not going to have the USS Truman babysitting down there in the Red Sea, they've got to do that themselves. Well, that will take some pressure off the people of Gaza and the people of Lebanon as well.
But I think they can provide them with the extra bombs. What I understand is Israel's up the bombing on Sana'a, right? And they're getting all those bombs from the U.S. We talked about the 2,000-pound bombs that are bunker busters. So, I mean, I think that, the United States can play it off like they're sitting it out, but they're still providing all the weapons and the know-it-all, too.
We'll see. We don't really know what the terms of the ceasefire look like, but I would imagine that they would continue shipping them things, but even so, you know, they would need to have local military assets in the Red Sea to be able to protect the shipping to and from the Red Sea, which you know, as far as I'm aware, Israel doesn't have that advanced of naval capabilities, but I'm not a military expert by any means.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the people and what they're going to be doing with them, we were talking about, we started with 2.1 million people, and this all the talk about who we're going to ship them to, who's left. I'm looking at the calendar, and I'm just trying to imagine, you know, being in a position where if you're in, like we heard in Rafah, like the entire place has been wiped out, and that's like the southernmost tip. What are the people? They're waiting for what? Waiting for answers about where they're going to be shipped to, as they're starving to death, as aid workers are still being murdered as they try to get aid to them. As I mean, this is ongoing every day. I think, to me, I feel like there's this stalling out approach to where we don't really necessarily have to have an answer to how many hundreds of thousands have to go to this country or that country. You're losing them by the day, and that starvation timeline, it's ticking down. I mean, if we go much longer, there's not going to be anybody left to ship out of there. And that's the reality of it. And I don't know how they're going to write those numbers off and say they weren't killed by Israel. They're going to have secondary, justification as far as how they died. But we know it's all from this assault from Israel. It's been ongoing, and the starvation is the last part of that. I think so. You don't actually have to ship too many of them out of there, even if you just wait it out.
Well, that's been the strategy so far. Just, you know, run the clock out until, and I think, you know, like we said, they're kind of hitting that point of media fatigue and especially a week like this, when just over the past 48 hours, it seems like all hell broke loose, and, you know, you have all of a sudden World War III capable of breaking out on almost any continent at any time, basically. So, you know, I think that does work a little bit in the Israeli favor, just having a bunch of other stuff happening, having people kind of, you know, paying less attention, not being clued in as they otherwise might be. And going back to it, I think, you know, it's funny about the Democrats, because it does actually work a little bit in favor of justice to have, you know, now that they're allowed to say that, you know, genocide is bad, or that, you know, Israel shouldn't be killing children. That is the people who traditionally, the Democratic base, who have been more willing to speak up on behalf of Palestinians. Not that it's done them much good over the past, you know, say 70 years, but that is traditionally who has been expected to kind of push back against whatever Israel has planned for Palestinians. So now, you know, there is at least some segment of the Democratic Party that feels a little bit more free to speak to their conscience, you know, or that empty void where their conscience used to be.
But then that's why they take Bernie and AOC and parade them out to do the Fight the Oligarchy tour. It's to take those Democrats on the fence that were like, wait a minute, we should be angry now. Let's do this.
It's a political strategy, masquerading as ethics, but it, you know, I think the end result might be slightly more attention being paid to Gaza, but, you know, the jury's obviously still out on that one.
I mean, we hope so. We hope there's people waking up and going, wait a minute, now's the time of any, even if you still have a little Trump derangement syndrome going, this, like you said, I think you're suggesting here, right, that now is a good time, because you can say, hey, what is this administration doing? Why are we canceling free speech? Why are we continuing to go through this, whatever this greater Israel project is, that our administration, our money is paying for? Now's a good time more than ever to get vocal. But I don't know, Wyatt. I think that, again, the Bernie and AOC, this Fight the Oligarchy, it's designed to get those people that were ready to get vocal, bring them back in. And if you show up with a sign, with a Free Palestine sign to a Bernie and AOC rally, you get led away in handcuffs. I mean, Yeah.
But the crowd does not seem to appreciate it very much.
Well, that's
and the
true.
crowd seems to be
Israel
very
has the right to
bewildered.
defend itself, Wyatt.
Yeah.
Israel,
Those-
22 months later, with 50,000, only the ones that are buried they counted, so maybe close to 200,000 women and children. Israel has a right to defend itself because why? Hamas.